Welcome into a brand new episode of WSI TV. Enjoy the show.
Hi guys, welcome back to WSI TV. Today we're going to be doing another episode of Informer Spotlight. I, of course, am Taylor Klinkbiel. I'm joined by Leah Warren. How are you doing, Leah?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to have you here today. We do have something that's kind of interesting that we're going to talk about that's a little bit off the beaten path in terms of investing. Before we get into that, I do want to remind you to go to WSITV.com. There you can sign up for our free daily newsletters and you get instant access to the WSI Vault. So, kind of jumping back to what I just said, we are going to talk about odd investment opportunities, and these are ways that you can make money that are probably not something you'd already, fathomed that would be a way that you would bring in income, but there are tons of different opportunities for this here. So if you want to explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the stock market. Today we're going to talk about the ways that you can invest beyond the stock market. We've talked about real estate before, but this is even more off the beaten path than that. You've heard of investing in bonds, real estate, all of that. But that's not all there is. You can invest in art, music, and even classic cars. There's a lot of odd investments out there that people don't think of as investments. They might just be a hobby, or they might be seen as an investment only for the rich. But we're going to show you how you can get into it with little to no money. For some of these, you might actually already have some investments in your house without knowing it. So let's just go ahead and get right into it.
Yeah.
So the first thing is assets versus liabilities. So this is really important to note when we're talking about unusual investments. So when you think of an asset, you might think of your house or your car as an asset. And again, this is a really important distinction of your house and your car versus an investment in a house as a property for real estate purposes and a car that you're then going to sell. An asset is an investment that produces a passive second income. So it's something that you purchase and then it has this flow of money coming into you. A liability is something that costs you money but doesn't return those funds to you. So your house is a liability. Your car is a liability. If you use your house as a way to flip a home and then you move on and you make a profit off of that home, then it becomes an asset. But if it's just something that you're holding that's not appreciating in value and you're not seeing that money come back to you, it is a liability. So today we're talking about assets as investments. So we're talking about the possibility of getting something that maybe you enjoy personally. If it's a car, if it's a piece of art, you might love it, but you're also going to be profiting off of it. So it's not just something that you have in your home.
And I think that's an important distinction, especially like you mentioned with most people think unconventional investing opportunities, you have to have a certain level of wealth to be included in that, whatever niche it is. That's not necessarily true. You may not need, $300,000 to buy a classic Lamborghini, but your car that's in your driveway right now is not necessarily going to be making you money. So it is a very important distinction that don't kind of count yourself out from these investment opportunities, but also be aware of the actual value of the things that you may already own.
Exactly. So one of those is wine, which is a big investment. Just personally, if you enjoy a nice bottle of wine, and a lot of people will also collect wine and then sell it off or just watch that appreciate in value over the years because they say age like a fine wine.
Yes.
For a reason. But there actually is another avenue of investing that I personally was very interested in, which is investing in whiskey. So you can buy into whiskey investment funds. You don't even actually have to purchase the whiskey yourself. You can, absolutely. If you purchase a rare whiskey and let it appreciate in value over the years, that's a great way of doing things. But if you want more of the hands-off, it's just like investing in the stocks, but it's a whiskey investment fund. And there's one whiskey investment firm that promises 8 to 18% per annual returns on this for investors. So pretty good returns.
It is, yes.
So I have a few for you. There's Syntat Asset Management AB is a Swedish fund manager, and they recently opened up their own separate Scotch whiskey investment fund. So they started having investors join in with as little as $100 and appreciated about 25 million euros worth of money and used that to create a portfolio of rare and limited edition whiskeys that they just keep and hold, and they appreciate in value. And your money appreciates in value, just like stocks. So kind of an interesting option.
Awesome.
A couple others are Platinum Whiskey Investment Fund, which is traditional American investment fund for whiskey. It's actually based in Hong Kong, but you can invest in it just like you'd invest in the stock market here. And then another one, there's Spirited Funds, ETFMG. Again, ETFs, we've heard of that before.
Yes.
So these are all very similar, but it's something specific to whiskey, which is kind of a fun thing to invest in. If you're a whiskey buff, if you're any kind of alcohol buff, this is a great way to do it. You can also invest in traditional wine investments. So wine is a long-term investment. It does not appreciate quickly. To see returns on your wine investment, especially if you actually are purchasing bottles yourself, you have to wait about 10 years for quality returns because it is usually increasing by about 5% a year. Sometimes there are rare wines that will get more than that, between 13 and 26% annually, was seen between some very specific wines from Napa and from France.
Okay.
So if you know which wines you're looking for, and if you know that there is a specific round of wine in a specific year or from a specific region that is going to appreciate, and you snag that up, you can see really huge returns on that. Sure. But with wine, it's a little bit more complicated than whiskey. There aren't exactly ETFs the way that there are with whiskey. So you do need to invest directly in the wine, and a lot of people will suggest that you go through an investment manager or go through a more traditional investment fund so that you know that you're getting something that is quality. Unless you happen to be a connoisseur of fine wines, in which case you're good to go. So those are some fun ones. Along the same avenue, there's investing in art, which, Tayler, you actually did a lot of research on for our book.
Yes, yeah, we did do kind of a section actually dedicated to exactly what we're talking about today, and unconventional ways that you can make money. And art was actually something that came up that you may think of it more in terms of, for example, when you buy a bottle of wine, it's something that maybe your grandparents would do, and you kind of just sat on it and hoped that it would appreciate in your lifetime. But they've kind of changed the way that classic art and, you know, very fine and expensive art is invested in the future and just in, you know, modern society. Before it was you had to be a billionaire or millionaire. You had to be able to walk into the New York galleries in London and be able to, you know, kind of hold a candle to the pedigree and the money that they're expecting you to already have. And they've kind of lowered those barriers for you now. So there is a program called Masterworks that actually allows you to invest exactly the same way your whiskey funds kind of do, bring that closer to the everyday investor. You go on their website, you can invest as little money as you want. I believe it starts at $50 or something like that. That you can pick a Picasso, you can pick a Andy Warhol and say that you like this one or that one, and you're buying a share of that piece of art. So I can go onto this website and I see Marilyn Monroe in color by Andy Warhol, and I can buy a fractional share of Marilyn Monroe for $50 or $100 or $2,000. And then as that art appreciates, there are buyers looking to purchase these pieces from Masterworks and from just in general. And then each person who owns a fraction of those shares receives a payout.
I see. That's a really cool way of investing in it. I know that we talked about it a little bit when we were working on the book. But it's a really interesting thing. As someone that minored in art just for fun in college, I love the idea that it can be, like, an artwork can be shared, because that is kind of the idea of art in general, is that it's supposed to be shared by the masses, but here you're actually getting a profit from it. So another one that you researched a lot was investing in cars. A lot of people are car buffs. I actually just saw a really cool car show near home last weekend.
Oh, nice.
So people will go out and they'll buy these antique cars and they'll fix them up and make them beautiful, good as new, and then they'll just keep them, which is a great way to do things if you love that car. But also, if you turn that skill into a profitability, you can just do the classic fixing up of cars, but you found another option beyond that.
Yes. So if you're like me, I have absolutely no idea what car I'm looking at. If I'm seeing one, I mean, classic cars are, of course, very beautiful and very exciting when you meet someone that knows what they're doing with them. But now you don't actually have to be, you know, a connoisseur of antique cars to be able to get involved in the money that you could get if they do appreciate. So we do have a website called Rally Road. They are very similar to Masterworks in the way that they work. They kind of list high-end cars in the way that stocks would be listed. So on their website, kind of the front banner that when I was doing the research that was on there was just a 1963 Ferrari, which of course is a gorgeous car. Ferrari in of itself is already a high-end brand, and it had already appreciated 300% since it had been tracked by Rally Road. So you can claim a part of that car for as little, it was $50 for Rally Road, that you could go in there and say, I want to buy $50 worth of the 1963 Ferrari, and then that 300% appreciation goes into your bank account. So it is a very interesting way that you can get involved in things like this. Of course, you can't park it in your garage, but you do make money on things like this that are, usually outside of your range.
Yeah. And this is with the art, with the whiskey, with the cars. There's this really interesting kind of excitement added to it.
Yes.
That if you're new to the stock market, or if the stocks kind of scare you because they're this distant, unknown thing, with this there is a physical thing that you may not have in your hands all the time, but you can see photos of it. You know what it is, and it's something specific to you. It might be something that you're very passionate about, and that passion can become a way to finance your life.
Exactly.
So another one is investing in music. I just found this one, and I thought it was really interesting because I knew that there were royalties from songs, but I didn't know that they were available for you to purchase. So very similar to the last two websites that we talked about, there's songvest.com and the royaltyexchange.com sell shares in songs, or even will sell entire songs to people for however much they're worth, and then they appreciate in value over the years, and people will pay you royalties to use them in commercials, films, the like. One example on songvest.com was the Monkees song, the Hey Hey We're the Monkees. Everyone's heard it. It still makes about $10,000 a year in royalties, and that's an old song, and that's per year. So if you had a share in that, you'd be getting a piece of those profits every year, and it's completely and totally passive. Once you sign up on these websites, it's like having a stock, and you just get that payout.
That's awesome.
So a really cool option.
Yes.
And did you know, in addition to that, your hobby could be making you rich? Stamps, coins, rare books, other items like that incur value over the year. Just anything that's old, pretty much, if it's in good value, will have some kind of increased value over the years. So our first one is stamps. And on average, stamps produce about 2.6% gains over 1 year and 5.4% over 3 years for the last several decades.
Wow.
So pretty consistently, you're making a sizable gain. It's not a huge gain, but it's a consistent one, which is what we're looking for when we're talking about diversification and investment. Some rare stamps actually do more than this. They can triple or even quadruple. There's one 1867 stamp that had a three-year annualized return of 26%. And another one from 1830 had a 3-year return of 23.7%. So some of them have much bigger percentages. And plus, if you have stamp collections, those are worth way more. Individual stamps, I'm talking a single little piece of paper, can get you 5.4% in return every year. But if you have a collection, you're seeing more like a return of, say you invest $50 in your stamps, you could see that increase to 100, 200, 300 over the years. And just by finding stamps that individually aren't worth that much and putting them together with other stamps, suddenly that collection becomes something of high value.
For sure, yeah.
So we have a couple examples for you. So we have one stamp that is worth $9 million. It's a single stamp. And this one's actually really interesting because it is a misprint and it is a stand-in stamp. So it's actually made from another kind of sticker that was then printed over to create stamps when they didn't have stamps available to them in the 1850s. Another one is from 1855. This one's worth $2,600,000 for one stamp.
Yeah, just keep reiterating that.
And this one was a misprint, and misprints are very, very valuable when it comes to stamps. So if you ever buy a stamp pack and see that there is a misprint, save that stamp. Don't put it on your mail.
Don't throw it out either.
Yeah, or if you receive mail that gets that that has a misprint on it, just go ahead and keep it. You never know. In 10 years, 20 years, that could be worth a whole lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people will do this already. If they see a pretty stamp, they'll just go ahead and save it, and that's why we have stamp collectors. But over the years, those stamps do appreciate in value. And this is something that is becoming more and more valuable. Part of why these are worth millions of dollars, quite literally, for single stamps is because stamps are kind of going out of fashion. But especially those misprints, keep tabs on those. Another one that's very similar is coin collecting. On average, rare coins have experienced gains of 13.2 to 10.1% per 3 years or 1 year. So pretty good returns. 10% a year is not bad.
No.
One 1559 British coin had a 1-year return of 27.3%. And then other coins from the 1500s and 1600s specifically have seen 3-year gains of over 20% on average. So pretty good returns. And then coins can also drastically increase, just like stamps, if you have collections of them. So if you have a complete collection of a certain series of coins that were printed in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, or from, there's all different things. So if you have a specific coin from a specific year, and you have several different versions of it, or if you have a example of coins from around the world from a specific time span, all of those are worth a lot more than a single coin. So that's part of why coin collectors are so stringent about their collections, is because when you have the right coins, it's worth so much. Again, we have some examples. The Liberty Head nickel, which is actually from 1913, so it's not an old coin, is worth $4 million. So this one was a limited edition version of the nickel. And because of that, there are only so many in circulation, and that has made it worth so much. The Liberty seated dollar is an 1870 coin. It's a version of our American dollar that was printed for a very short time, and that one's worth almost $2 million.
Wow.
And then we have a double eagle coin that's from 1927 that's worth over $1 million. So these are all American coins. I just wanted to show examples of, there's so many out there. There's so many from all different periods, all different countries, all different values. But even something like a penny from the 1950s is now going to be worth over $1.
Yeah.
Which, if you think about the rate of interest
percent
increase,
of change, so
that's, you could have up to 1,000% increase on the worth of a penny over just the course of 50, 60 years. And there are specific coins that are worth more than others, but if you have a change jar, just go ahead and go through it. You might end up having way more than you think in there. And then these coins are still in circulation. They're very rare to find, but they are still out there. And if you do come across one, or if you find one that someone is auctioning off and they don't realize what it is, you can snag it up and then sell it off.
Exactly,
So coin collections are a great option.
More lucrative than you think.
Yeah. Another one that we are definitely on board for is books. For novice investors, it may seem like a good idea to grab every old book that you find, because books are an investment. A lot of people don't look at it that way, but they are. But collections of books are very specific in that, kind of similar to coins and stamps, you need to have a specific theme for your collection. So from a specific period, from a specific style or theme, or even just from a specific author. And books are devalued based on edition, quality, author, and other related factors. So you might have an amazing first edition book, but the binding is falling apart, and it's going to lose its value of several $100s if it's a valuable book. But the great thing is you can buy those books at their devalued price in a secondhand bookshop because they are falling apart. And then if you have the resources to fix it, which are actually easier to find than you would think, there are book doctors that can fix binding for you, and that can increase the value by several $100s. I know that when I lived abroad, one of the things that I loved to do was just amateur shop for those rare books. And I found a 1923 version of Alice in Wonderland, and the binding was falling apart. But I took it to get it fixed up, and I took it into a bookshop when I got back to the States to have it valued. And I bought it for 25 pounds, which is around $30. When I took it in after getting it fixed up, it was worth about $150. So really great returns on that. And again, if you have a single book in a series, it's not going to be worth as much as an entire series. But if you see a series that you'd like to get the entirety of, say Jane Austen, we actually have an example of one of Jane Austen's collections that's worth $2,700. And this isn't even a very early edition. This is from 1922. Complete works are a huge value. So if you see one work in the collection, just go ahead and grab it. And then you see the next one a couple of years later, just slowly add it up. And then once you have that total collection, you can sell it for a lot. You might actually have some first editions or rare books in your home without even realizing it. So Harry Potter came out in 1997 in the United States. The first edition of the American version of Harry Potter is now worth over $6,500.
Wow.
So that's, 23 years?
Yeah.
And it's gone up in value from about $15 to $6,500. Cat in the Hat came out in 1957. The hardback of that, there were thousands of them in distribution. But that one's now worth $1,300. And a lot of people have that in their house, just passed down from parent to child. And then George Orwell's 1984, again, thousands in circulation for the first edition, because at this point he was a known author and his books were printed by the millions. So a very common book from 1949 is now worth $11,500. And then again, it doesn't have to be a first edition. This is probably a 20th edition of Jane Austen that we brought up here, because it's been reprinted and reprinted and reprinted. But if you just have that whole set, it becomes so much more worthwhile.
Exactly.
This is the most expensive book, the single book that I could find. So this is actually a fairly recent copy. This is a Hemingway book, and originally there were supposed to be 300 printed copies. Only 170 went out into distribution.
Wow.
So today, if you find one of those 170, no matter the quality, it can be worth up to $75,000.
That's insane.
And you might have something like this on your shelf that, because
Exactly.
people will keep books from parents, grandparents, you'll keep a book from your childhood, you'll just have it on your shelf and not even know it's there. So take a few minutes, go through your coins, go through your stamps, go through your bookshelves, and see what's there. You could have a fortune just waiting for you. But as always with these, you want to diversify.
For sure.
We talk about all of these different options for investments, and we just want to remind you that these are really great ways to save and make money. But still invest in stocks and bonds, still do those traditional retirement funds. You want to have diversity.
Yes, yeah. I think Leah kind of made a good point there in saying that while a stamp, a singular stamp could, appreciate, 3% over the year, which is awesome for a stamp that probably cost you less than $1. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that is a good return to have with something you probably didn't know could have a return. But still kind of consider your traditional investment options. We're kind of adding another slice to the pie, if you will, as opposed to taking one away. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so still have your stocks, still have your bonds, still contribute to your retirement fund. Just add something else, and then you can have an even bigger income. Plus, this can be a hobby too.
Yes.
Because I know that I collect those books, and I don't necessarily intend for them to be a financial gain, but they could be. So something fun to consider. There are tons of other non-traditional investments available too. All you have to do is do a little research, find the right one for you, and start your work.
Yeah.
So, and if you want more information on all the unusual ways to invest, you can find out more in our book.
Yes.
It's available on Amazon. It's called The New Rules to Win the Game of Life. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. Taylor did a lot of research on this specific avenue of unusual investments. So I think that's all we've got for you today.
Yes,
Taylor, thank you so much for letting me bring this out for everybody to see. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching the latest episode of WSI TV. Be sure to visit WSITV.com, where you can subscribe for free with no contract and gain instant access to the secrets of self-made millionaires via the WSI TV Vault. So go ahead and claim this gift for free now at WSITV.com.